this video is in reference to a viewer that emailed me. She reached out to me. It's a black woman. For obvious reasons, I'm not going to disclose her identity, but she wanted me to share her story for people who are in interracial relationships. What you see on the screen, this is a blog that she has, and she sent me an email, and it says, I was in an interracial relationship, and it was the worst thing that ever. And it was the worst thing ever, that now I'm just completely against interracial dating. Now, before I get fully into this, I'm going to say this, because the people who follow me and who have watched my content, even if you're new to the channel, you should be aware now of the fact that I'm really not real big on interracial dating. I think it's very counterproductive. A lot of people don't understand that my position on interracial dating and why I think it shouldn't happen, although I said it in.
And this is what I mean. She's always been this way. She's not a friend of divestment. She's a hater. And that's my thing about this. This is the last video I do on her with these type of videos. But it's important to address, because I feel like there's plenty of mammies who are very friendly to the divested sector. There's plenty that are very neutral, but she is an avid enemy. She literally hates people who interracially date, and that's my issue with her, is that she has an issue with divestment. She has an issue with people like myself, so why wouldn't I have an issue with her? Continue, though.
Did it several times already. The most important thing being is that it's a direct contradiction when you're dating the very people that you're complaining about disenfranchising and oppressing you. I know.
And that's pretty funny, because she literally complains about the very men she dates, black men. So what about the hypocrisy there, sweetie? Continue.
The people who are in interracial relationships, they simply don't think about what their actions are doing to the community as a whole, or how it may be impeding on the progress of Black people in terms of liberation and subsequently eliminating racism. Like, whenever we engage in these relationships, we never even think about our actions. People think it's about love, and it's really not. My thing is that we've been constantly and consistently terrorized by the white community without cause. So I don't even understand how some people can even think that they could be in a loving relationship with someone.
Yeah, and it's black on black crime that kills black people the most. So if anyone is being terrorized by anyone, it's black people being terrorized by black people. Also, you do know that if we're talking about racial crimes, it's actually black people who kill more kill more white people than white people kill white people. I mean, black people kill more black people than white people do, and black people kill more white people than white people do. That says a lot. So if anyone's being terrorized cross-racial relations, it would actually be white people who are being terrorized by black people. Just a point I wanted to put out there.
It's oppressing them, and someone that's a part of that oppressive ruling class. Now, you might not think that the person that you're with is a white supremacist because they're laying up with you, but rest assured that if they can sleep comfortably at night while laying in the bed with you, knowing that they have their privilege and knowing that you live a separate existence, and that you, being that you're black.
A lot of white people don't believe they have a privilege. No, they don't have a privilege. I know that white people don't have a privilege because I live every day and I can see that they don't have a privilege. I worked every day and I could see back in my early 20s that they didn't have a privilege. Okay? Obviously, if someone is living in a sewer, they have no privilege whatsoever. When someone is begging at 7-Eleven, they have no privilege whatsoever. when someone has to tell you about their friends, drug addictions, problems, and so forth. So, all the white people at your job, black people at your job, and Hispanic people at your job can get normal working full time hours because the computers have shut down and because there is no more work for the day. That is truly not privilege to be privy to a very sucky job that's not going to pay you full-time hours at a minimum wage rate. Talking about my early 20s and what I had to do, one of my managers had to do back in the day to help us try and have full-time hours for my white coworkers, my black coworkers, and my Hispanic coworkers. The majority of poor people are white. The majority of people on food stamps are white. Just some points I wanted to bring up there. Statistically, white people don't have white privilege. If they did, how come they're not at the top? I know to you they are at the top simply by being white, not by any actual physical success. See, to you, success is just simply having white skin, but that's actually not success when statistics have shown that white people are not on the top. Okay, Asian people excel over them, Indian people excel over them, there are Africans that excel over some white people. I mean, it's really silly that you just think that whiteness means success. Whiteness doesn't mean success. There is no privilege. You just feel inferior just because that's a sense of your self esteem that is lacking. But it's got nothing to do with them having privilege. You just feel inferior. A lot of people who are divested and interracially date have a better self esteem than you because we feel equal to white people and you don't. You feel inferior to white people. You feel they have a privilege over you simply by their skin tone. You feel that they are better than you. And that's what your problem is. That's what your vitriol is your anger at feeling like you are inferior, basically. Thinking that you are of the inferior race. That's what angers you. The thing is, divestors don't think they're inferior. We think we're equal. And that's why we move along like we're equal and not inferior and bitter like you.
Can lose your life if you go out and have an encounter with an evil albinoid double mercenary. Within 2 seconds, your life can be ended based solely on your blackness. And they don't do anything about that. Then they don't love you. Now, people can sit here and they can talk about, oh, it's not,
That's not true at all, though. You're talking about acting like white people are going to kill you. That's not the society we live in nowadays. The society we live in nowadays, we have more to worry about with black people killing other black people and people saying that they need to get out of prison on a shorter sentence because they don't want the demographics of prison to be overly black. That's what you have to worry about is easy sentencing for black people because they kill you or hurt you or victimize you. Because black lives don't really matter, it's thug lives that matter to society. And that's why the face of prisoners is black people, which makes it worse for us because that's a bad image for us. On top of everything, on top of the violence, on top of the fact that there's a higher rate of black people getting murdered than any other population. Continue, though.
The majority of white people are white supremacists. It's the Illuminati. It's the Jews. It's the Zionists. It's the Bilderbergers or whatever. It all goes back to white people. And the reality of it is if you think that 1% can rule the world with one agenda based on race, and the rest of the 99 are compliant in it, you're sadly mistaken. Because number one, even let's just say if the elites were using race to divide people. You can't use something that's not there. So the majority has to have a racial bias in order for a racial bias to be used. In order for them to be able to use race to divide the country, a large majority of the country, including the people that you lay up and call your husbands, wives, girlfriends, boyfriends, children, or whatever, they have to be in on it too. They have to have that deep-seated racial hatred in order for the elites to be able to use it, because they're not going to create some racial hate where there is none, or else black people will be reversing it on white people.
All you're doing is reversing it. No, you can't use an example of actual racism against black people. You have to imagine it. You have to imagine it because what you're doing is this. You're making up negativity and racism because you want to hate a population. You want an excuse, so you make up racism to hate white people because you're a hateful, racist woman.
Now, the fact that they already showed you with the women's movement that they can get up and protest and fight and get laws changed, they simply don't care to. That should be a testament to you of how much you being in their life is really not all that significant. You're not really doing anything. They simply want to enjoy the benefits of white privilege and white supremacy and lay up with you too. It's a sexual upgrade. They've always desired sex with black people. That's nothing new. So the fact that your situation and your circumstance isn't changing is a test.
So, I really don't get why you think that it would be a privilege or that they believe in white supremacy and yet they're with black people. Do you understand how white supremacy works? No. You think of it in your own lens of, oh, I would feel so happy or feel so like I'm so inferior and he's so superior to me, but you don't understand what does that mean to a white person. Why would a white person who believes in white supremacy be with a black person if they really do see black people as inferior to them? They're not worth a relationship, obviously. They're not even worth sex because they're inferior. Why not be with people of your own race? There's more white people in America than black people. So, I mean, people who are with black people usually are either that way because that's what they prefer and they go out of their way to do it, or it's a situation where they don't see race specifically, but they basically incorporate black people because they are attracted to black people as well, and they don't see race as defining your value, basically, which implies they're not a racist person. The only one who's seeing things through race in a very warped way is you.
To how they really feel about you. The fact that we're still fighting a centuries-old battle, despite the fact that you're willingly giving your body to them and laying up with them, is a testament to how they really feel about you. So those are just some of the things, but there's this swirling.
I don't understand this nonsense about colorful words of racism, systematic or whatever, privilege and all this bullshit for centuries, but you can't even bring up any examples. And then when you do, there are always things that are very distorted and everyone can disprove it very quickly because racism isn't the biggest issue. It's not a main issue for black people in this day and age, and you just make it up to basically have a point, but it's not real.
Movement where everyone wants to pretend that white people are the best mates for black people and that they should go get a relationship upgrade by swirling or dating a white person. However, that's simply not the case. There's a lot of people who have very negative experiences, and they do really realize that you're adding insult to injury by dating someone not just of a different race, but of the white race who have been historically and presently oppressing you. Relationships are hard enough. They have a lot of different issues that just comes with dealing with another person.
Why are you focused on white people when in our country there's not that much racism in present day? there's so much more racism among other people of other races, like, for example, Latin Americans in Mexico and so forth, and how many of those people just became citizens who are black. They're not incorporated in the rest of society in Mexico, and they aren't even allowed to go to school just recently. Or like how many people in some Asian countries compare black people to apes on a regular basis and have a very widespread negative view of black people. I mean, you try to talk about white people. I think when you're focused on white people, it's because of your jealousy and your anger at the idea of your perception of blackness and whiteness and the fact that you see black people as the inferior race and you are angry at white people because you see them as superior and you see them as privileged simply for being white. It's a you problem. It's a jealousy problem. It's an anger at white people because you're not white and you feel like because you're black, you're doomed and they are precious and they are more valuable and that they are somehow more privileged than you. Continue.
Add to that, that person being from a group of people who have historically and presently been trying to destroy you, you could already see how that would be more problematic and how it would be directly contradictory to what you're trying to say. You can, in one breath, say, oh, I want to fight white supremacy, but then go lay in the bed with your white supremacist about that night. That's why nothing is changing despite you being with him, and it should be.
White supremacy has always been fought by white people. This is how black people got equal rights during the civil rights movement. This is how black people got away from slavery during the Civil War. It was because of largely white people, not black people. If it was up to black people to get freedom from slavery, if it was up to black people to get equal rights, we would still be slaves on some plantation. A few of us would have been smart enough to run away, but for the most part, we would still be slaves on some plantation because black people never had enough power to be able to live sovereignly, to actually make change legislatively, basically, because black people never had the same amount of a population to have a voice big enough to actually make change alone. Black people always had to get white people's perspective and opinion to change.